Hello, Mr. Valorant. Hello, Mr. Valorant man's Valorant thinker. How are you today?
I'm good, Mister Speaks, Mister Speaks. Yes, all is fine. It's snowed for the first time, at least where I live in the UK, since 2010 in November.
Wow,
Um, it's my
momentous.
birthday tomorrow, so
Uh,
this will be the first time that I remember having snow on my birthday.
for a second, I thought you were
Uh,
gonna say this is the first time I remember my birthday, and I was gonna say that's
no,
tragic.
no, I remember my birthdays. I mean, most of
39
them are.
years, and you only remember one of them.
Are you a person who, celebrates your birthday heavily?
No, not at all. I think I
No, me
probably
neither.
stopped when I was like 21, maybe 22, something like that.
Yeah, I've never been a big, but I mean, having it in the middle of November doesn't help either, to be honest, because it's quite dark and dreary and damp and cold,
Yeah,
at least in the UK. So doesn't lend itself to the greatest of celebrations. I always think about doing it on like May the 20th. That's like 6 months as far away from my birthday as
just a
possible and
half
celebrating
birthday.
then. Yeah, yeah,
Yeah, sure. I mean, who cares, right? I think facts have been
yes.
proven to be not really
Yes,
relevant to
facts that we
society. So,
well, but the last time we did one of these, we lived in a different uh political climate, at least for you. Um,
yeah,
so yeah, a lot has changed since the last time we did this.
definitely. So yeah, this is episode 41 of Cosmic Divide. I mean, it's been what, like three and a half weeks since we last spoke. So lots of stuff has changed. I guess the first thing that we should probably talk about is, yeah, I'm the assistant coach of Global Esports now. Um,
What? You didn't tell
so
me.
that's a complete lie. I did tell TMV. He likes to just try and make me feel bad. But that's just classic TMV. Super negative, always criticizing. You know, go to Sliggy's stream if you want positivity. Um, but yeah, so basically, that means that I will have to be stepping away from this show in the next couple of episodes. Um, I'm not sure exactly what the plans are, but stay tuned, I suppose. Maybe TMV will have a co-host different than me. Maybe he'll just do it himself. Can you imagine just doing like an hour-long ranting monologue? I think that would be kind of sick. Maybe you should look into that.
Honestly, I mean, I've done. I went to the theater like a little for one of my degree things. I had to do like a 30-minute monologue essentially. So yeah, that's something that I'm familiar with potentially doing, and I feel like I could, if there was enough to talk about, I think I could pull it off. Hopefully, I hope. I mean, it's
I
basically just a stream, right?
Yeah,
It's
yeah,
fine.
absolutely. That's the thing. You've been practicing your whole life for this. So,
Yeah.
okay, so yeah. Also, there's been big news in Valorant because I guess.
Well, just before you move on from that,
Oh, sure.
just so everyone is a bit clear, I also have no idea what's going to happen. The future is the future is cloudy. Mists are around everywhere. Um, So honestly, this might be the last ever Cosmic Divide. It might not be. It might be in a different form. I don't know. None of us know. So enjoy this.
Yeah, and
Basically,
thank you for
savor
watching
this.
all the episodes. Honestly, thank you for
Yes,
watching all the episodes over
watch this
the.
in half speed and savor it.
Nobody wants to listen to you for twice as long, TMV. Um, anyway, uh, there's a huge Valorant patch. This is a bigger patch than I thought was going to happen. Actually,
Yes, this is one of the biggest patches that we've had in a while.
yeah. So Valorant 9.10, the patch notes were dropped today. Um, I don't know if it says exactly when this is coming out, like the actual release date.
Normally,
Uh,
it's 2 days after. I think now. So it'll be
oh, so this is like almost
or like
immediately happening. What
yeah,
you're
this will
saying?
be I think tomorrow in NA and then Thursday everywhere else. I think that's how
Okay.
they do it.
Well, let's go ahead and dive into a brand new Valorant then, because
Hmm.
starting with new armor. Um, New armor type. This was teased a couple months ago, and we were
Hmm.
speculating all about it. Is it just for Phoenix? Is it just for agents with heals? Is it a new armor type for the game? It's a new armor type for the game, and it's called Regen Shield. Costs 650 credits. The damage absorption of the shield is 25 HP. The regeneration pool is 50 HP. So what that means is you buy it. It's a half shield. When the half shield takes damage, 25 damage, or I guess any damage, it will regen out of the pool after a brief delay, it says, um, and go back up to 25 out of that pool of 50 total. And then I guess it'll just do that perpetually until all of the
Yeah.
regeneration points are gone, and then you have no armor after that. But also, interestingly, one of the things that's always been kind of weird in Valorant is that armor doesn't actually fully absorb damage. It's kind of just like one of those
Yes.
mechanics that's like in the game that nobody really ever thinks about, but it does have
Yes.
impact,
Yeah.
which is that what is the normal shield? It absorbs like 75% of damage, or like I
Yeah, it's
can't even
something like that. But
remember.
you'll
Yeah.
often end up with like 91 HP and 7
Right.
shields.
Right.
Like that'll be like a common number that you'll end up on. It's kind of, yeah, kind of weird where it seems like, yeah, why wouldn't the shield just I don't know why they haven't done this, but at least, yeah, as you're probably about to go on to, this shield, it seems, will take 100% of the damage,
Right.
obviously, which makes sense because then it can regen. Otherwise it'd be kind of useless. So yeah, I don't know why that was the case in the game, but yeah, that makes sense. And the part that got me in the patch notes here, it says after a brief delay.
Yeah.
I wish they were a bit more specific with that because it's
Right.
like,
Yeah. How long do you have to be
is
out of
it 5
combat?
seconds?
Like,
Is
yeah.
it is it half a second? That kind of matters as well.
Yeah. And is it like if you haven't taken damage in this amount of time, or does it automatically start regenning like after 3 seconds, regardless of whether you're in combat or not? Because I can imagine some weird scenario where like somebody's, running you down with a frenzy, but you took a tick of damage, I don't know, you know, 5 seconds ago, and now your shield is starting to regen as you're
Oh
getting
my
hit
god,
by
I
a
didn't even think
frenzy,
about that.
and like your health is going up as it's going down, and so you end up just taking no damage for like half of a second to some low damage weapon. I don't. Yeah,
I
we need
didn't
a
even
little
think
bit more
about that.
specificity in this.
I literally only just you can buy this on pistol round.
Yeah,
I didn't even think about that.
yeah,
I mean, because like I'll just give you my initial thoughts on the regen shield in general was initially I was kind of thinking like, like I mean, it's just the same as having light shields, essentially, like in terms of like dying to an outlaw, dying to, a headshot.
hmm,
Um, it's the same as having light shields. So it doesn't seem like that would be too crazy or like what the situations would be that you wanted to necessarily buy it. You just have given me one though. That seems like a pretty obvious like you would probably want your duelist to have this regen shield. Someone else buys them their gun. Depending on exactly what they're playing, they'd have 150 credits to maybe buy some util, depending on
yep,
what util they have and how much it costs. That seems like the obvious choice because on a pistol round, like again, obviously the time to kill is so much higher. Generally, people hit less headshots. I would say on a pistol round, they're more
yep,
inaccurate. They got even less accurate in this patch as well. Um, so having that as an option and having it heal you back up is really quite strong, I think, on a pistol round, particularly like attacking pistol round where your duelist will be taking that first fight. Um,
yeah. I
yeah,
think
that seems pretty good.
I think we might be playing around with some sort of like legitimate tank meta coming in. I know it sounds
Mm.
absolutely stupid to say in a game where you can die in one shot no matter what to certain guns, but like, let's say Clove's heal is too expensive to buy this and the heal. Um,
Mm.
Sage, I think the heal is too expensive. Reyna, I think you would be able to buy an
Well, Sage, you
extra.
get the heal for free.
Yes, that's true. Um, I mean, yeah, I'm pretty sure there's at least some scenario where you end up with like, I don't know, arena with two heals, a regen shield, and a sheriff, and it's literally just a raid
Yes,
boss, like actual raid boss.
actual full raid boss. Yeah.
Um, and yeah, I mean, it could be a very interesting thing. I'm still a little bit weirded out just from from the perspective of now, what is this full absorption versus half absorption? I feel like somebody's really going to have to do some math about like when it's correct to buy this. But to me, it almost seems like why would you ever buy a half shield when you can buy this now? Um, Aside from maybe you need those extra 250
Credits.
credits. But yeah, it seems like half shields are just fully like kind of last resort territory at this point.
See, I see now in my head though, I thought that this was somewhat useless. I've always been a half shield believer. I don't understand why people are still buying full shields, even with an outlaw, because barely anyone buys it. In general, like unless you're playing someone who does buy it a lot. Which I feel like after the first 4 rounds, most people don't buy an outlaw. There are some people and some teams that do,
Right.
particularly some of the better teams. I think they're kind of on top of this stuff, noticing when people are on ecos will buy outlaws and stuff. But in general, I don't think it's common enough to where light shields still weren't worth it, in my opinion. And so now I'm trying to go through in my head, like how often, like let's say you have light shields and you take 3 body shots but win the fight. You're alive on 5 HP. If you had this instead, you'd get 25 more. Well, that's only taking you to 30, which is still 1 body shot to a Vandal or a Phantom, so you're still gonna die. So it's probably not worth it in that sense. But if you take 2, then it's like like I'm going through the kind of calculations in my head of like common.
But would you take 3 body shots and go to 5 HP because this absorbs 100% of the damage instead of whatever percentage the other shields are? So it's going to completely change the math because of that.
True, but if you've
I
only got 125, then if you take 120, it shouldn't matter that much because you're still taking so much damage, essentially.
Yeah,
If you go what I mean.
yeah.
But that was just that specific example. If you do it for less, then you're right. Like if you only take 2 body shots or 1 body shot, then it might be different. Which is it's going to be interesting. I'm going to have to think about it more. But 650 credits, like in my opinion, most people buy full shields most of the time, right? I don't see why. Like if you weren't buying half shields before, I don't get why this would change your mind. If you are a team or someone who believed in buying half shields, I could understand why this would change your mind and maybe you'd go to this instead. But if you were just buying full shields anyway, that to
Yeah.
me says, oh, we don't like the 125 max HP.
Yeah, yeah.
So why would you change? Because this is still giving you max 125 HP.
Yeah, that's true. I mean, I guess realistically, the only way we're gonna kind of
Yeah.
understand this is to see it in action. Maybe it'll have 0 impact. I feel like there's just gonna be a few more like random like
I think
WTF
pistol
moments.
rounds is big though. Pistol rounds,
Pistol for
like
sure. Yeah,
that's gonna be very, like you say. I mean, an absolute raid boss brainer in your games is not gonna be fun
yeah,
to deal with this.
yeah. Anyway, overall thoughts. Is this good? Is it bad? Is it
Look, I think that this is adding something new into the game. It might be not that strong. I don't think it'll break the game. And so as long as like whenever they add something, it's like to me, like as long as you're not breaking the game, like fine, that's cool. And I don't think that this will break the game. It might make some rounds like pistol rounds more interesting. So I'm for it. And if it's too weak, they can always buff it, right? They could always, do whatever
yeah?
with it and make it a bit stronger. So like I'm cool. I think it's interesting.
Cool. Yeah, I'm gonna have to figure out like whether it makes sense to buy this on eco rounds or full buys or
Yeah.
like what's the best case scenario for this new thing.
Mhm.
But there's many more changes to come. Okay, moving on to agent updates. Cipher. Cipher has been a dominant force with his map-wide information gathering and powerful kill setups. Because Cipher's map-wide info is intended to be his unique strength, we want to target the efficacy of his kill potential. So they have adjusted Trapwire to increase the counterplay time window, so you don't get instantly wall hacked when you hit the trip. There's a half-second delay between hitting the trip and when you actually get revealed, which in low elo will have 0 impact, but in pro games may mean that tripwires get no value going forward potentially, because most pros are killing the trip when they hit it almost instantaneously. And so, yeah, I actually think this is a pretty big change for pro games. Thoughts?
Yeah, in my opinion, this is like I mean, and you say no value, but they are getting you still know that the trip has been broken, so you are still
Correct.
getting
Yeah,
some
you're
value, I
getting
suppose.
info value, but the
Yeah,
ability to just get kills for free is
yeah.
significantly reduced.
I think, like, just on the whole, I think this is a good change. I think that Cypher was too strong. I think that it makes sense, like they say, Cypher has map wide info. He's got more info than pretty much anyone else. Like, why would also his kill potential be this high? I
Mhm.
think that makes sense. This is a good change to try and change that. I think for me, I kind of think of, like, the split trip in mid that sometimes can be like a bit of a bitch to break.
Going behind the
Um,
box up into the
yeah,
stairs.
but
Yeah.
like where it is,
Yeah.
where you need to aim to it. I always think for those kind of trips, this is obviously a good change for, like, the person who's playing against the Cypher, because where that trip is, it can just be annoying to break because
Yeah.
you might not have the best angle to break it with your gun, whereas now you can just run into it and you know where it is, so you can just break it without being revealed. So those ones, it's fine. I still think that in some cases, particularly like, and might force ciphers to be a bit more creative with their setups, right? Doing kind of weirder trips, that people maybe aren't as used to. Where
Mhm.
people don't necessarily know automatically where that trip is coming from, so that they can get the wind up, and then get the reveal and then the kill. Also saw
Think
someone say that this might be you'll need to be better at Cypher to get value in terms of like doing one-way cages and stuff like that. Because
Mhm.
then you could still put a trip down with like a one-way cage near it.
Yeah.
And they break the trip, they might be able to break it, but then you just one-way them and you can still see where they are and get the kill anyway. So I think that this is just a good change in general, because I think it just forces ciphers to be more deliberate if they want to, or be better at playing Cypher if you want to get that value. And Cypher was too strong, and this is good.
Yeah. I think it definitely pushes him more into like his specific niche
Hmm.
than just being like, because that's always kind of been the problem, right? Is like for the longest time, Viper was just the best stalling sentinel, right? And
Yeah,
they've really hit Viper multiple times to kind of push her out of that. And Cypher has really taken over as like the best stalling sentinel. Um,
yeah,
when in reality, the best stalling sentinel is supposed to be like Sage or Deadlock based off of their
yeah,
kit. And so, yeah, we'll see whether this actually changes the meta. I assume there will be a little bit of a change. Also, another thing that was adjusted is Neural Theft is now 7 points, which I think is fair because I feel like this ability is up like every 2 rounds, and it's actually quite strong.
yeah,
Um, for the longest time, this was kind of a meme ability because it's like, oh, well, you have to get a kill, then you have to get near the body. But the more that I see like lurking ciphers use this, the more I'm like, this ability is insane. Like you just get perfect
yes,
information for a round, and then you can make a perfect mid round call, and you can basically just get a site for free if your
yeah,
cipher gets value. So good to kind of like adjust how often that's happening. Um, and yeah, I think the trapwire stuff basically now almost exclusively targets like duelists who are really diving deep into site without support, just utility support. Because if they're in a pack, their teammates will shoot the thing. But if they're really being sent in deep and then you catch them, a lot of the time you'll probably still get value out of the wall hack and kill. So cool. I'm fine with that. Moving on to Sage. Sage has been feeling weak. Yes, she has, and has a very low pick rate in high level play. So they have adjusted the slow orb to make it actually slow. So when people dash through it, they also are slowed. So Jet's dash is reduced to half the distance. Neon's slide is reduced to half the distance, which in the video that they showed looked like absolutely no change for Neon, but for Jet was pretty significant. I am curious. I assume it probably does not affect Raze, which is interesting. Maybe makes Raze, if Sage were to become meta, maybe Raze is like a good counter because you don't actually touch the ground. I don't exactly know how that works. And I assume
I,
also if you were to jump as Jet and dash, would you like if you're like a little bit off the ground and you dash, do you get slowed or is it just purely when you're on the ground?
I would
So that's
assume it's when you're on the ground. I think if you updraft over it, then yeah.
but I mean just like a basic hop.
Oh,
Like do you just like a little basic hop and then dash? Um
see that I would say you, like, in my opinion, it should be like, if you just jump and do it, then you still should be slowed. But if you
yeah.
updraft, you should be fine.
Yeah, yeah.
Is the way I would want it to work, I think, even
Yeah.
if that doesn't fully make sense.
Yeah, so
But
we'll have
yeah,
to test that in
they also
September.
buffed the healing, the self heal to 50 HP. The ult is now a 7 cost as well instead of an 8 cost. I don't know about what you think. I think that this makes Sage much stronger in ranked. Like,
Yep.
the self heal is good for ranked. The res is actually good in ranked, as opposed to pro play, where the res is kind of always feels like you're just waiting for the opponent to kill it somehow,
Yeah.
and you don't get that much value from it. And the slower will be somewhat impactful in both. But yeah, I felt like this was more of a like Sage is going to be better in ranked, and I don't really think this is the changes necessary to make Sage actually get a high pick rate in high level play.
Yeah, I mean, I agree. I don't think it really shifts her as a competitive agent. The only thing I could really think of is like if you wanted to go all in on some sort of, again, like kind of tank meta where you just like fully buy into the Regen Shield. You play Sage, you play, Phoenix because he's new and has lots of heals. You play kind of like the zombie comp almost that Talon ran
Yeah,
last year, where maybe there's something there because now there's so much more healing going around with the Regen Shield and all of this stuff. Maybe there's some interesting stuff to explore there. But yeah, Sage still definitely needs some help. Like her just I still don't even know what I would change to make her a viable agent, but I'm picking basically every other Sentinel over her. And the
hmm
only reason I would ever maybe even play Sage is in some sort of gimmick comp. Um, to specifically counter like a neon meta or post plant spam or something like that.
yeah. Well, there you go, everyone. GE not playing Sage.
We'll see. Gonna go kick some Sage comps now. Deadlock has also gotten a little bit of adjustment. The ultimate will now always kill a target when the timer expires. This is actually a pretty big deal because it opens up a lot more opportunities to use the ultimate in creative ways, like bouncing it off of random geometry on the ceiling and stuff like that. That would
Yeah,
normally try and pull them over a wall or through a window that would then eventually release them from the ultimate because you couldn't pull the model through like the wall basically, but
yeah,
now they die. So that's pretty cool. And they've also updated some stuff visually to make it more clear what the health is on her abilities. So just a nice little kind of quality of life buff for Deadlock. I think Deadlock's in a pretty good spot at the moment, and I would expect to see a decent amount of her this season, to be perfectly honest, because I think teams are starting to realize that GravNet is broken. That ability is really, really good. Goes through walls, has the biggest range of basically any ability that catches players, and it's quite good against a lot of the current duelists. So we will see some more Deadlock, I think. And if teams don't pick Deadlock, then they're trolling. Okay.
yeah. Yeah. I mean, I think we'll see quite a bit of Deadlock.
The
Although we'll see.
Okay, this is probably the biggest agent change. I know
Yes.
there's like some pretty big agent changes as far as like lots of numbers tweaks, but this is, I would say, maybe the biggest agent change in the
Yes.
entire patch. Omen, I mean, everybody knows Omen's been like the most picked smokes forever, essentially, outside of that small period of time where Astro Viper was popular. Um, and despite being nerfed, like essentially ever since they changed his teleport, they've only been nerfing him. Um, and he's remained to be one of the most powerful smokes in the game. But a large portion of that was because he could do unique one-way stuff, and it made him very, very good at stopping teams from taking control of areas because you could place the smoke. The center of the, for those who didn't understand, the center of the smoke had basically like a 1 pixel wide landing point where the smoke would bloom from, and you could place that 1 pixel on top of another 1 pixel wide thing on the map. And it could be like a little, overhang on a door, it could be like a little dent in the wall, that type of thing. And that is where the one ways came from. So now they've changed it so dark cover will just fall to the level of the ground, or basically wherever like a large flat surface is. So you can still one way on top of like the double stack Radianite crates and that type of thing, but you cannot do the unique and interesting one ways. Like, I mean, is the Lotus one way?
Yeah, you couldn't do the lowest one way
I
anymore.
don't think you can do like the main A Lotus one way anymore. You definitely
Yeah.
can't do the one way on Split anymore on B main. You can't do most of the really good one ways. The Haven one way at A short, where you put it on top of like the little plaque on the wall. So basically, Omen just has basic smokes now. They still regenerate, which is great, but the one way power was a huge part of his kit, and hopefully, this will make teams explore other agents. He's kind of been like a fairly easy to execute agent, and I think that obviously paranoia is still pretty good. He's still a pretty solid all-around character, but he definitely has lost a large portion of his like unique power from this. And I don't know. What are your thoughts? I guess tell me your thoughts on whether you think it's going to have a big impact on the meta, and then also tell me on whether you like this change.
I'll do it in reverse order. First off, I hate the change. I think it's a terrible change. I hate it because I really liked the design element of the controllers, that they all kind of felt like, hey, these are just smoke characters, but they all have their kind of unique thing about them, right? Brim, you can
Hmm.
place 3 at one time. Clove, you can smoke after death. You know, Harbor, you've got controllers. Wall, Viper, you've got the fuel. Uh, and then Omen, of course, his thing was, I mean, you could say like the regen part of it, but Clove also has like a regen part to it. So Omen's thing was, this one-way thing. Um, so I think removing that is just kind of like, I really, really hate it. And I think there were better ways of nerfing Omen. For me, the like, if you want to nerf Omen, hey, he's got this ability that's like by far the best flash in the game. That you can't turn, and hits a massive area. Hey, maybe this like the literal best ability in the game. Maybe nerf that, from a controller, not even an initiator. Yet you've got like one of the best stalling slash initiation tools
Hmm.
of any agent. Maybe that's the problem.
Yeah.
And actually, I was just going through the maps. I've gone on Valorant and I'm looking at the maps, and I'm thinking, okay, Abyss. I'm looking at Abyss and I'm like, I don't think this will affect Abyss at all. To be honest, we still, you still see quite a bit of Omen, but like, there isn't that many one ways that you
Yeah.
use that like you can't do now. There might be a couple, but like all the main smokes that you use with Omen on Abyss, I'm looking at it, I'm like, you can still do most of them. Ascent, obviously the main one way that you do in a main,
You
you
can
can
still
still
do.
do,
Yeah.
but there are a lot of kind of post plant one ways, both
Yeah.
on
Over
A
the
and
door on
B.
Switch. Yeah. That type of
Yeah,
thing.
that will be affected by this. So Ascent, I think, did get impacted. Interesting, we did see quite a bit of Omen on Bind. I always felt like the one ways weren't used enough on Bind. There actually was a ton of different one ways you could
Hmm.
do with Omen on Bind, and the teams that picked him, I was like, you aren't doing enough one ways to make Omen worth picking here, because there are so many available to you. So Bind, probably not going to see Omen that much there anymore. Haven, again, there are some that you did see every so often, but yeah, they were used, I think, by, I would say, the best Omens. The people
Right.
who really knew what they were doing on Omen would like, they could be quick enough to get that like post plan A one way on Haven,
Right.
right? And it would like the round was over if you got that smoke down. Like it did often feel like if you could do that quick enough, then the round was over. But you often found that like if people are trying to flood in and you don't really have time, so you often just get a normal smoke there anyway.
Yeah.
So Haven, it will impact somewhat, maybe the best Omens, but I think most people would just kind of okay. If you're just okay at Omen at a pro level, I don't think it'll impact you that much. Pearl, you're probably not going to see Omen anyway. That'll be an Astromap. Split is an
Definitely
interesting one
important.
because, again, there were some one ways here. I always hated the fucking B main one way and the way that teams played around it. Because I
uh,
always just thought like teams would throw out the B main one way, but it was quite, again, it wasn't the easiest one to do. And you
mhm.
would see these Omens like fiddling around and not quite being able to do it perfectly all the time and whatever. And they would never actually try and defend it. It always felt like everyone just walked past it and like knew like you're not defending this because you're spending too much time fiddling around, and I've walked past it by the time it's up anyway.
Right.
Like it always just felt like someone could, if you wanted to, actually do this well, but no one ever did. So I actually don't think Split will, like, it will impact it a little bit, but I don't think it'll be the craziest thing. Again, you could like do a one way at the back of A for like a post one if you wanted to, but again, no
Hmm.
one, like, again, apart from people who really knew what they were doing on Omen, you wouldn't really see it. And then I'm looking at Sunset as well, and I'm like, well, the main one way that you do on defense towards A on that box, you can still do, or the deeper one on like the next level box as they're coming towards the site, you can still do. You could still do the post plant one on A, kind of towards the back site. That you can
Yeah.
still do.
The
You
B
can't
main
do the one in
control
B
one way.
main.
Yeah.
You can't do the one in B main anymore. But I'm looking at most maps and I'm like, you know what?
I think you crashed.
And as I was saying, Before I rudely
British
interrupted myself.
internet. British internet is so great.
Yes. As I was saying, Omen, I think, won't be impacted. Omen is lucky that Lotus isn't in the meta because that's the one map that I think Omen, like the one way on Lotus, would be kind of a big deal. But I actually think a lot of the other maps, like you're still gonna probably see a pretty decent size of Omen. What do you think?
Yeah, I mean, I don't wanna. Yeah, fuck it. I mean, it's a ways away from the season starting. I think that probably what's going to happen is because of the Astra buffs and now the
Hmm.
Omen nerfs, there's going to be like this perception. Oh, okay, we should just go
I
play
yes.
Astra now on a lot of the maps. But
Hmm.
I kind of tend to agree that this doesn't actually change too much for Omen unless you were a very good player. And that is what really pisses me off about this change, which is that it essentially has made it so there's not a ton of point in like mastering this character. You just
Yeah.
like pick it up and play it now. Whereas and that to me is just like maybe a little bit of a concerning sign for the overall game design because this is like the second or third time that they've sort of taken something that was like uniquely skillful but not that many people used and
Yeah.
they've made it more simple. And
Yeah.
it's like, yes, it's good for, maybe overall player base, but realistically, I mean, who cares as like a casual player? No casual player was even interacting with this part of the game. It was literally just a unique thing that only high level players were really doing. And now it's gone essentially for no reason.
Yeah.
Um,
I mean, I would say high
because
level
yeah.
players and me because yesterday I was playing a ranked game on Ascent and was using those one ways in
Yeah.
post plants and just like winning
And
post plants
owning.
because
Yeah.
I knew like, oh, I can just do this one way and we'll win because of it. So yeah, high level players +1.
Yeah, I mean, well, don't sell yourself short. You're a high level player, despite what I've
Well,
said in the past about your abilities. But yeah, I mean, I don't know. I just generally I think that the unique sort of like almost like it's not a bug, it's a feature type of things that have been discovered about this game, Riot has sort of been like systematically stomping them out, and I don't really love that approach because I think those types of things, it's sort of
yeah.
like an accidental like cool mechanic that comes into the game based on maybe not intentionally from Riot's part, but um, that kind of thing is what makes a game really cool a lot of the time. So yeah, I don't know. Not a big fan of the Omen changes. Will it change the meta? I think maybe psychologically for some teams, but realistically, Omen's still probably pretty good on certain maps. Okay, moving on to another smoke agent, Clove. Clove has seen almost no play in the professional scene, here and there, a little bit of smattering,
Who could
and
have seen
yet
that coming?
there has been another nerf to the agent, which is a little interesting. Um, so some clarity, some quality of life stuff for Clove, but then also they have nerfed Not Dead Yet, the ultimate, to make it so you have 2 less seconds to find a kill. Um, and yeah, I mean, just kind of a small nerf for Clove. Any thoughts on this? Will we see more
My only
Clove?
thought about this is that I find it interesting that with pretty much every other agent, like even like if you look at Sage and what they said, like, oh, Sage has been feeling weak with relatively low pick rate in high level play. Like that's the it's almost as if they're using like what is your pick rate in high level play as like the barometer for whether you need a buff or a nerf. Because I'm sure you could argue that Sage in, mid to like low ranks, it was fine before, right? And,
Yeah,
and pretty strong before.
yeah.
Yet still they gave Sage a buff. Whereas, like you say, with this, it's like Clove isn't played at all in high level play. It's almost like they've made almost like an exception for Clove and maybe Rainer as well, of
Mhm.
like just accepting the fact that like the pure design elements of these agents will never make them good. Like unless we redesign these agents, they won't be good in high level play, but they're good in ranked. So you need a nerf because you're too good in ranked, but we know you won't get picked in high level play, which I
Yeah, I
just think
mean,
is a bit interesting.
it is it doesn't necessarily seem like there's like a really clear through line about where the inspiration for some of the changes come from. Obviously, some of the bigger ones like Viper in the past or like
Yeah.
Omen in this one, it's definitely because of the pick rate in pro games, I think. But yeah, like you said, I mean, close pick rate in the pro scene since release is probably what, like 2% or something like that
Yeah,
overall.
max. Yeah.
Um, okay, anyway, maybe we'll see some more Clove, maybe not. Basically, the ultimate, it's just like a Phoenix ult is how you really should use this thing. But anyway, Phoenix, speaking of which, has plenty of updates. These were sort of teased before, but now we get a full sort of rundown of what that means. Curveball, his flash, is now his signature ability, which is good because it makes more
Mhm.
sense. He's a flashing agent. Might as well give him a flash as part of his kit initially. It also has a kill recharge now, so you can have up to 3, maybe even 4 flashes in a round, depending on how much he's popping off. Which I think is actually great because it really is just like what Phoenix does: is he flashes
Yeah.
and he swings, and that's all he does. Um, Hot Hands has been changed to cost 200 credits, which, as far as mollies go, is pretty good value. It doesn't have the longest range to throw it, but it's a molly that does a lot of damage on the ground and also has the healing ability, which is quite strong. So for 200 credits, I think this is one of the better mollies in the game, if we're being honest. Um, Blaze, his wall, is now an actual ability because it travels through walls like Harbor's wall does. And so you can actually smoke off a single or maybe even 2 angles, depending on where you're going. And that is quite strong. And then maybe the second biggest thing other than the curveball changes is that now if you simply touch any of his abilities as Phoenix, so
Mm.
you touch the Blaze wall, if you touch the hot hands, you get the healing over time. It's
Continually. Yeah.
yeah, which is really nice actually because the play pattern of throwing a tiny little wall in a corner as you're face into the wall with a molly at your feet just to heal up
Yeah.
was
Just have to
really
sit there
stupid.
the whole time. Yeah.
Really stupid. So this
Yeah.
basically all of this just gives him more forward momentum as a character, which is where he really thrived because now it's like you can run in, you could throw a molly like as you go in, or throw a wall as you go in. You take your first fight with the curveball, you dip into the wall, get the healing off, continue running forward, take another fight, dip back into the wall, get another healing potential. I mean, I assume you can heal multiple times off of stuff. I mean, I don't know. That'll be interesting to see. But yeah, it seems like a good way to sort of amplify his one main strength, which is running towards the enemy team. Um, and they did not change the cost of his ultimate either, so he still has a 6 cost ultimate. I think the only one in the game now that Cypher's has been changed to 7. And
Rainer or Raisha.
who?
Rainer.
Who? Anyway, what are your thoughts on the Phoenix changes? Will he be meta?
I love these changes. I love these changes so much. I really want to see global esports play some fucking Phoenix this next season. Because like everything about this is the kind of stuff that like it's interesting. You was talking about like I don't even know what they would do to Sage to like make Sage like be meta or whatever. Like this is the kind of level of change. You need
Yeah.
like a kind of swap the signature abilities around.
Yep.
Like make the slow the signature so that then you get regenerating slows throughout the round on a 45-second cooldown. That's the kind of like, and then buffing other stuff and changing stuff and then making it make more sense. Like you say with the kind of touching the flames and then getting continually heal. Like these are the kind of level of changes that you need to make a bad agent good.
Yeah.
And I'm just excited because like this essentially is like at least at high level play, like this is essentially like you've just added a new agent into the game.
Hmm.
Um, as you say, especially with like a 6 cost ult, which feels just kind of so almost out of place with for how strong it is for how little it costs, which I
Yep.
think is cool. I think it's cool to have an agent who is kind of ult centered. Um, yeah, I'm just excited to see what people do because I think there's probably going to be quite a bit of cooking with the new walls, whether you're using it for your teammates, how you're using it to enter in onto a site. I think it'll be just interesting to see what people can cook up with this because I think it's going to just be essentially a new agent in high level play. And look, I've always thought that Phoenix, obviously the ult is good. The flash is like I think the only flash that pro players can't consistently dodge all the time. Like breach flashes, sky flashes, they turn that shit like it's nothing.
Yeah.
right? But Phoenix flashes, when the rare time you do see a bit of Phoenix, like is actually the one flash that's, you do like, maybe it's like a 50-50. They actually do get full blind by it.
Yeah. Uh-oh, TMV's internet's gone again. Yeah, I mean, the thing is with Phoenix is that the flashes have less sort of use cases because they're so short range, but they are very strong in those use cases. And so I could definitely see a lot of like trap setups with Phoenix now in some of these smaller maps, like a split, like a sunset type of thing. We saw a lot of Pearl Phoenix with Paper X in the past. Maybe that has become significantly better with this. And I really think that this sort of like ability to be forward momentum based as a character is kind of an underrated thing. And if you're really good at Phoenix and getting value out of it and farming the ults, I think I actually really do think that this character has some legs. I know people hate playing duelists that don't have like a gap closing ability to skip utility, but I think we're maybe starting to move in a direction where people realize that like, well, we're pretty good at like breaking the trips now. We're pretty good at sort of like dealing with actually getting through choke points in a lot of cases. And yes, somebody can post with an op or an Odin and really cause some problems, but people have gotten so much better at like if they get smoked, they drop another smoke through and then you run into your smoke and then you spread out when you come out. So I think maybe it's a little bit past time to start thinking about, non-movement duelists in some certain maps as like a viable way forward. Um, that's just one of those things where Valorant is very like habitual in terms of the meta. And so people are so used to being like, well, if I want to enter the site, it's just so easy to just dash through. But is it really the best if the agent is not that good at the map otherwise? I don't know.
Mm. Yeah. And fuck, what was I gonna say? Fuck. I can't remember what I was gonna say. It was something very on point and very insightful, I'm sure, but I've completely forgot what I was going to add there. But yeah, Phoenix. Oh, what I was gonna add was, do you know whether, and I don't know this, you're an assistant coach now, so these are the kind of things you should know. Will the Phoenix wall, when you put it somewhere, if it's like by a Killjoy alarm bot or a Cipher trip, does it break them?
Um, I don't think it ever has, but I am not sure because it does damage.
Yeah,
So
it
I
does
don't
some
know.
damage.
That is
But there you
something
go.
that,
That's
yeah, if you can just like slice it through a wall to like kill an alarm bot, that's kind of a cool ability.
yeah,
But yeah, I don't know if that actually works or not. We'll have to test that when it comes out.
yeah. There you go. That's GE day one Phoenix testing.
Thanks for the tech.
Um, no problem. Because yeah, I was just thinking there's probably some places like on like Pearl, towards the double doors, like you often get like Killjoy alarm bots in there. If you could do some kind of wall that destroys where a normal alarm bot would be, plus like have it wall so they can't see you as you go through. Like, I thought something like that might be pretty cool. If
Yeah.
it will break it. But yeah, let's keep going.
Yeah. I mean, I guess the last thing about Phoenix is any map that has easily accessible attack orbs,
Hmm.
definitely an option for Phoenix because like if you can get this ult up like every 2 rounds, every 3 rounds, I mean, there's a lot there, and with all the
I think Pearl is a goer for Phoenix.
yeah, I mean, Paper X was having a lot of success with the agent there, so
Yeah,
I could definitely
I
see
really
that.
do.
Okay, last agent change is Jet just catching a little stray nerf. Good, fuck this agent. Um, cannot drift. Can't float while suppressed or detained.
It
Cool.
just makes sense. It's
Yeah.
like should have always been the case, but yeah, cool.
So now if Jet is trying to like float down from a high place and you hit her with a KO knife, she falls like a
Fall
stone
to
and
the ground.
dies like she deserves. Map updates. Sunset now has better lighting. Cool.
Bixby
Um,
main.
Bixby made.
Yeah. Did you not watch SR?
No, I didn't. Didn't
Well,
have a
let's
chance to
just
watch.
say, do yourself a favor for global. Go and watch some SR VODs, and you'll realize the B main it's a problem. Still a problem.
Still the B main spam. You're saying?
Still a problem.
Makes sense.
Still just spam.
Okay. Gameplay system updates. Combat report. This is actually relatively significant. The combat report should be a tool to provide gameplay context for what your impact was within a round of Valorant. However, it has been leaking information, and Valorant hates leakers. So they have now decided to make it so your utility does not show up until the round is fully over. So you will not see 3 allies or enemies flashed. Allies in TMV's case, enemies in my case. Guiding light will also not tell you how many people were there around a corner. I'm curious whether this is going to extend to stuff like Sova shock darts. Like if you throw a shock and then you die, are you going to see that you did 60 damage to somebody, or is that also going to be delayed? Because that's fairly significant.
That's a good point. I would have thought the damage that you did, like, would still count. Because like you could think like what counts as seeing in a Sovereign? Like if you Sovereign someone who's pinged, are you seeing them?
Yeah.
Like yes, you are, but like in theory, you're not. Like you know what I mean. I would assume that damage would count. I think it's just for, and this is I don't know this, but I would guess that it's just for things like things that don't do damage,
Right.
like
Yeah.
a
Yeah.
flash.
Yeah. Hopefully mollies will still tell you, and shock darts and any damaging utility. Otherwise, that is, I mean, that is if they do change it, so it's just all utility does not tell you
Yeah,
information
then
until the
that's
end of the
massive.
round. That is a big change again for high level play, because I know a ton, basically all pro players rely on this feed to give their teammates information about stuff during the round. Okay, so potentially very big change, potentially not so big of a change, but definitely a bit of a, I don't know. It's a quality of life change that is maybe not great for high level play, but probably for the best overall. I don't know. I don't know. I guess it makes sense to probably not be able to leak that there was 4 people long when you got one tapped by one person after flashing or something like that.
Yeah.
Okay, concusses have also been changed. Cosmetic stuns are plaguing this game, and there's so many stuns in the game now with Neon and Breach in every single map. But they didn't really change them for the
I was gonna
cosmetic
say,
part.
how's he gonna get this? Because
They've only changed it,
they're
so
still cosmetic.
yeah, they only have slowed 2 people, which is Jet and Neon. So this is a completely overhyped change. I feel like this does
There's your
absolutely
Neon
nothing.
nerf.
This is basically nothing. Yeah, it's basically nothing.
It means that when a Neon stuns themselves, they can't just slide out.
Yeah,
Save
but I mean, they
themselves the
still kind
embarrassment.
of can. They still
Yeah,
kind
they
of
can
can.
50% slide out.
Yeah. They've also updated the visual representation of overhealing. And then they have also, once again, made smokes easier to understand for noobs. So now when you're inside of a smoke, you will get the visual sparkles when it's about to go away, just like you do on the outside of the smoke. Honestly, I don't really care about this change. I know there's
Did
a lot
that
of
change? Like people complain so much about that change, but did it really?
there's all these like
Did it
purists
matter
who
that
think
much?
yeah, there's all these purists who think that their skill cap of remembering the smoke timing
Yeah,
is like the reason that they're good.
remembering to look at a clock 15 seconds, or like if
Yeah.
you're playing Omen, you can like see when.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I
stupid.
have news for you people complaining about this change. Start picking other agents than Jet and Reyna, and then come back and talk to me about the game. Okay, that is the end of the patch. Oh, no, never mind. It's not the end of the patch.
Oh.
There's weapon updates. There's a big group of weapon updates now as well. The first of which is that they have massively changed, maybe not massively, but pretty significantly changed all of the moving inaccuracies. Every single weapon is more inaccurate while moving.
Apart from SMGs, I think.
Yes, that is correct. Spectre and Stinger are still the same, but
Classic. Stinger on top.
every other gun has had their inaccuracy changed. So if you're running and gunning, unlucky. Zeppa out of the league. I'm just kidding. But I don't know. I feel like, especially in pistol round, this is gonna make the teams that are just the players. Okay, I'm kind of yapping right now. Most pro players are kind of bad at pistols. I feel like most people just DM a lot with rifles, and their pistol rounds are just like total spam fest. There's certain people that are good at tapping with pistols, but a lot of people just like, ah, John Wick style, hoping that they hit people with the bullets while they run around. So
Yeah.
maybe this will. I mean, this honestly it just increases the skill gap in the game, which is good. So, if you don't move while you shoot, good job. If you do move while you shoot, unlucky.
Unlucky. Yeah, I agree.
Okay. They've also given the frenzy. They stole 2 bullets from the ghost and put them in the frenzy, which I
Good
think
change.
it's a good thing. The ghost had way too much ammo per magazine,
I even
and
think 13 is too much, to be honest. I don't see why the
it could
ghost.
probably be 10, honestly,
Yeah, I
something
don't
like
see
that.
why it wouldn't be even 10. Yeah, I don't.
Um,
Doesn't make sense.
the frenzy definitely did not have enough ammo, especially considering
Yes.
how inaccurate the gun was. It basically felt like it was almost a coin flip whether you were going to get a kill with this thing. Using it the way that it's kind of intended to be used, which is as a run and gun weapon. And it was basically like you would try and fight somebody and you would run out of bullets instantly, and then you would always be traded by somebody behind them. 15 now maybe gives it where you can actually kind of like, spray 2 people and then escape. I don't know. Frenzy meta coming back with the Regen Shield on pistol, the Frenzy
Oh,
on
maybe.
pistol with
Honestly.
Regen Shield.
Honestly.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's a good change. Good change.
Yeah, agreed. Phantom is
This
getting
is the
some
big one, though.
buffs. Yeah,
This is the big
Phantom is
one.
getting some buffs. So they say that there have been fewer Phantom purchases over time, with new maps getting released and higher proficiency in shooting. Phantom and the Vandal's current differences are intended to keep their identities unique while still being relatively competitive with each other. These changes are intended to make the Phantom feel better to use primarily and reduce frustrating instances of headshots doing less damage than expected at different distances. These breakpoints will remove some of the instances of 140 headshots and all instances of 120 or in one headshots, excluding wall penetration. So essentially, Phantom only has 2 damage fall offs now. 39 damage per bullet from 0 to 20 meters, and then 35 damage per bullet 20 plus, instead of having the fall up to 31 at 30 plus like before. Also, the extra 5-meter range extension on the initial damage is fairly significant as well. I was looking at some of the data as far as like a lot of where engagements take place, and I mean a huge amount of engagements are taking place in 20 meters. Like that is like the majority of fights in this game are like within 20 meters, at least early on in
Yes.
rounds. So this actually has a pretty big significance. I'm going to be honest. I think the biggest change they could do to make the Phantom feel better is to literally just make it sound like you're shooting a Vandal or similar to the Vandal in terms of the actual sound of the shot. I think people just hate the way that the Phantom sounds in comparison to the Vandal, because it just does not sound chunky. It doesn't sound like you're actually doing anything, and I think that is like one of the main reasons that people don't like using the gun.
So you would actually give it kind of a nerf, like get rid of kind of the silencer. You just
No,
want to make it
just add some bass.
okay.
Just go into the MP3 files for the sound, crank up the bass a little bit, add a little bit of like a kick drum as you shoot instead of the little that it currently sounds like, and boom, instantly the use rate goes up.
Look, as a Phantom, I've always been a Phantom user. I still actually think it is the better gun
It
in most
is.
scenarios. I still think it is. Maybe not like every map, like
Yeah.
obviously, like you say, like in like Abyss or Breeze. Maybe there are, obviously situations where you prefer a Vandal, but yeah, I think this buff, like, I don't know, this just seems like very good.
Yeah.
Like as you say, like I would love to know the numbers, but I would bet that, I mean, on some maps, like on your sunsets and binds, how many gunfights are over 20 meters? You might be looking at single digits across an entire game.
Yeah, literally just like the top mid fight essentially, and then fighting into like the back of A or the back of B sometimes.
Yeah, like, but you're not looking at many gunfights probably across the map, and even
Yeah.
that's not like you can't kill them, right?
Yeah.
So yeah, I think this is a pretty significant change. And yeah, as a Phantom user, I feel vindicated.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, hopefully we see more Phantom usage because it kind of does feel like over time people are just like more and more into the idea of just one tap headshot no matter what. And so like
Yeah,
smokes players are all using vandals and Cipher players are all using vandals and
yeah.
realistically you should almost be 100% phantom as a smokes player in my opinion. Like if you're trying to
Mhm.
really min max things. Um Also it means that spamming is more effective. It does more damage now with the phantom.
Yay!
That is actually fairly
You know, when
significant.
I first saw that, like, oh, the Phantom is getting changed, I legit thought, oh, they're gonna try and nerf spamming in some way.
Nope.
Nope. That was my genuinely when I first like, oh, the change of Phantom. No, that was not what they did.
Yeah,
They made it better.
they made it better. Yeah, I mean, legitimately, it's just a better weapon overall, like fairly significantly better weapon overall now. Um, the regen shield maybe plays a little bit of a weird kind of relationship here because maybe headshots, one shot kills are more important. I don't know.
Yes, that
Everybody
is
just
one of
use the
my thoughts of the
guardian.
region.
Everybody use the guardian from now on. That'll make TMV happy.
I mean, look. To be fair, I think the Guardian usage has gotten better. You know, obviously, I mean, people have gotten better at the game, so
Yeah.
their Guardian usage, I think, is better now. I always used to get annoyed with Guardians because people would one never spam through walls with it. They would treat it like it was, a vandal, and not use one of the main points of using the gun, I guess. And then also they just weren't that good at hitting heads all the time, even some of the best players. And it's like, wow, maybe I don't know. And I think the bulldog's good. Look, sue me. I think the bulldog's good. Sue me.
You know what? Stand on business, TMV. A couple final bug fixes. I'm only mentioning these number one because they use the nomenclature of the proper reactivation ceremony for Killjoy's alarm bot when it reactivates. It's apparently a ceremony that it does. The clove change is actually significant because in the past you could metal people through level geometry, which is very strong, just like GrabNet can go through level geometry. I wonder if they'll maybe change that now because I don't know. Being able to decay people through walls was very strong and honestly something that I've played around with in strats. So I'm going to have to remove those.
Unlucky.
And that is the end of the patch. TMV, thoughts on the patch? Will we see a completely new Valorant going forward?
No, but I think on the whole, I would give the patch a B plus.
Mm-hmm.
I think if you the Omen change is the only one that I'm really not on board with. I think most of the rest of it is good. I think the Regen Shield, we'll have to see how it impacts the game, but it's something new that's exciting. It's something interesting for me to think about. Like, is this worth 650 credits? Should you buy it? I'll probably be doing some kind of analysis and video on that in the next couple of days as I think about it more. But yeah, I think overall pretty good. What about you?
Yeah, definitely like most of the changes outside of the Omen one. Um, I would love to see them take a more heavy-handed approach like they did with Phoenix to several of the other agents in the game.
Yes.
And I think that patches like this are usually a good thing. Even if it just means like shifting the internal narrative that people have about the agents in
Mhm.
the game. Like I said,
Yeah.
and like we kind of maybe discussed, the Omen one-way changes is really affecting like 0.0001% of plays. But the simple fact that Omen is now getting yet another nerf in combination with a recent Astra buff probably does shift the smoke data
Psychologically makes a
significantly.
difference. Yeah.
Yeah. Cool. All right,
Cool.
let's move on to some other Valorant, more esports related stuff. I know you have kind of a heart out here fairly soon. So let's talk about game changers, champions, and fluorescent being announced as the new duelist for Apex in tier one. Um,
Yes.
so some fairly interesting things happening. I'm going to be honest, I didn't have a chance to watch most of this because I've been very busy. So you're going to have to kind of like give me
Carry you through it.
the the bigger thoughts on GC champs, I will say, it was cool to see a couple of my former players, Jolena and Amy, competing at champs since we narrowly missed out on this in 2023. So very excited to see both of them on stage. And yeah,
Amy hit an insane ace. I don't know if you saw that.
I did not, but I've seen many of those in practice, so not surprised.
Yes, there was an absolutely insane ace. A couple insane aces. Neuer also hit an absolutely absurd ace in the final as well. So yeah, takeaways overall from kind of game changers for me. So Shopify won the tournament, back-to-back champs. They didn't lose a map this time. There were some times where it looked like it was pretty close. They had a map against Zipto, which was 13-11 on Sunset, that easily could have gone either way. To be honest, their game against G2 Gozen in the upper final was probably the best game of the tournament. 17-15 on Abyss, 14-12 on Haven. So both overtimes, both times Shopify kind of squeak it out. That was kind of, the big title, fight coming into it was G2 versus SR. Very, very close, but SR, I think just that bit of maybe experience that they have now. This is the kind of game that I wonder, that last year, if it was this close against G2 last year and they were in these overtimes, I would wonder I wonder if they would have been able to do it. But I feel like they just came into this tournament with just like a level of just like confidence, like that you do see with champions. It's like,
Hmm.
it's like to beat the Chiefs, as many teams in the NFL have kind of realized pretty recently. I know they lost to the Bills last weekend, but to beat the Chiefs, like you've got to kind of be on it. Like, you really got to be on it. You give them like even just a little bit of hope, and you will lose that game. Like you
Hmm.
will lose, and it felt kind of the same with SR, where it felt kind of inevitable. Like if G2, anytime that they were on top, it's like, come on, G2. Like, I'm looking at like Abyss, right? They lose both pistols on Abyss, and it's like, you can't lose both pistols there, right? And it's like
Hmm.
you just gotta find a way to make it yours, right? And it just felt somewhat inevitable. And then the grand final, the first two maps, again, it just felt like it felt like MIBR, coming in as this. It kind of followed a similar story to 2023, right? Where you had G2, you had SR, and then you had the Brazilian representative, which was last year was Team Liquid. This time it was MIBR.
Hmm.
And the same thing happened. SR beat G2 in in the upper final. Then G2 lose to the Brazilian team in the lower final, and then the grand final. Well, last year it was very close. It was 3-2 to SR.
Right.
This year it wasn't as close, with G2 winning 13-7, 13-7, and then 13-11. For me, again, I'm hoping that next year we get game changers. I enjoyed the expansion. Zeta Division were a great team to have in there, who, at the start of the tournament kind of looked, a little bit like they didn't really belong. They lost
Hmm.
2-0 to Crew. It didn't look too great for them. Then they managed to beat FlyQuest Red in a big kind of upset. Then they beat Team Falcons in a big upset in the next game. Then they run into MIBR, and MIBR 13-0 them. 13-0, 13-3, and it was kind of a really like sad moment, because I think everyone, at least in my chat, was kind of heavily rooting for Zeta Division at that point to go on this miracle run. It wasn't to be, but I think the continuing expansion, I mean, judging by these results, right, like there definitely should be at least two Brazilian teams in the Game Changers Championship, in my opinion, because twice in a row they've been to the grand final.
Hmm.
So clearly, and two different teams as well. So clearly the teams in Brazil, are very competitive. And so I'd like to again see it expand to 12 teams. 12 is just a good number for a tournament as well. So,
Yep.
that would help. Because again, we kind of had this 10 team kind of a weird format where, again, it's kind of based off what the teams did last year, depending on where you were from, like, kind of weird. So yeah, I would prefer 12 teams because it would just be easier to run the tournament as a whole. But yeah, it was a good tournament. I think every time, I mean, I still truly believe the first Game Changers Championship, and last year's as well, and this one to an extent, but I specifically remember the first Game Changers Championship. At the time that was run, I was like, oh, this is the best run tournament that Riot has ever done in terms of like just like the production elements and the like smoothness of anything. Like, like not many tech pauses, like, very positive just vibes, I would
Hmm.
say, for the most part. um like just like I just think it's a very positive thing. And of course the main goal of game changers is to get, eventually players into, the kind of main circuit. And obviously the point of game changers is that eventually we won't need to have a game changers.
Right.
Um and we've, as soon as this tournament ended, we've taken the first, I would say, major step, right? That we are at the man lands on the moon phase. As Fluorescent has taken that one small step, but I guess for woman. Um,
Womankind. Yeah.
yeah, and one giant leap for womankind as Fluorescent will go and play with Apex. What do you think of that news? It came as a bit of a surprise, to be honest. That I don't. Did
Yeah.
you have? I didn't hear anything about it, and then all of a sudden it was like, oh, by the way, Fluorescent's on Apex.
Yeah. So, I mean, I've got the stats up right now. And I mean, it's very clear that there is one player who is significantly different level than everybody else at this tournament.
Hmm.
Um, Fluorescent averaged over 300 ACS for the tournament,
Yep.
1.72 KD, almost 200 damage per round, over a kill per round. I mean, just really, truly absurd numbers,
I
like
mean, I think even the most
actual,
absurd might be the first kills per round at 0.33 and the first deaths at
y-
0.09. A
yeah,
0.24 difference,
yeah,
24% difference in first kills to first deaths is insane.
yeah. It's very, very, very impressive numbers. Um, and then yeah, as so I mean, obviously there's been speculation about when will Floor get a shot to try and at least trial for a tier one team and certainly play in like tier two challengers. Looks like we're going to be skipping the challengers stage and going directly to
Yep.
tier one, which I think is fine, honestly. Just because, here's the thing, there's obviously some sort of like, teasing, oh, will Floor go to EG, Otter likes to kind of mix things up. It seems like that would be kind of a cool story. But at the same time, Apex is desperate for some press, right? They won EMEA Ascension and then half their players left. And it's like literally the worst possible scenario where they have invested all of this money to make it through EMEA Ascension. Oh, by the way, you only get 1 year in the league. Oh, by the way, half your players are gone, including your superstar. So they've really kind of been in a spot where they need to do something. They need to do something to have some sort of, good press, some sort of fan base. Um, and so they pick up Floor, who is the by far the most hyped GC player in the entire scene. And will it be good for her on Apex? I don't know. That is one thing that is a little bit worrying because seems like maybe a little bit of a team in disarray. Maybe not the best situation. Um,
Also,
but
you're getting kind
also,
of a late starting point
yeah,
for floor with this team.
late starting point. But also at the same time, if Apex is terrible, but Floor is the only one doing anything on the team, maybe it becomes sort
Yeah.
of like, okay, you know,
Okay. Yeah. This clearly is a tier one
like
player. Yeah.
right, let's move her to an actual team for next year, and then see what happens. Um, but yeah, overall thoughts on GC. Like I said, I didn't get a chance to watch very much of this, but I've always been a fan of it. I think it's a good thing for the game. I think there's a very like stupid pushback from the community. Like it's usually like a vocal minority, I think, of the community, but there's just a very stupid pushback against GC as a thing. I don't think people understand how incredible it is that Valorant's player base is like 35 or 40% women. Like for a competitive video game, at least those are the numbers that Riot released. I think it was like 40% or something like that, which is absurd for a video game. Um, maybe that's fake news. Maybe it's only like 20%, but regardless, there's definitely more women that play this game than any other competitive game I've ever played. Like it is very common to just hear girls playing in ranked and it's like, "Oh, that's pretty cool," because when I played Dota or Counter-Strike or any other game, it's literally just a bunch of sweaty dudes talking about how shit you are at the game instead of like being able to just be like, yeah, it's a game that includes a lot of people. Um, So I think the GC initiative has been a good thing for the scene, and I really hope that more players do just take the leap. I think it's probably going to require some of these teams maybe splitting up. Like at this point we've got like the NA super team of SR, we've got the EMEA super team of G2, and we've seen SR try to make it through the qualifiers and challenger, and it hasn't gone very well. But
Mhm.
maybe it's time for, Mel and Alexis to go start their own team, or join a challengers team. Maybe it's time for Mimi or Amy to go join some challengers team, uh, or try out for, tier one teams next year or something like that. I think I think the idea of trying to like take a full female roster through challengers, um, not that it couldn't happen, but I think the extra pressure of being like a
Yeah.
full female team is like fairly problematic for these players. Because I do remember even just last year when I think it was Katsumi was playing on a mixed roster, I
Mhm.
think called like
Yeah.
Burgerville in North America, and they like almost made it into challengers. So and she was good. Like she was good on the
Yeah.
roster. So it's not like these
And
players
Bob has been
can't.
in
Yeah, and Bob of
Bob has
course
been
is.
in tier 2 as well.
Yeah, so it's not like these players can't make it, but I think maybe it's time for them to sort of just be like, all right, you know, I'm just gonna go play on this team. I might be the only girl on the team. That's just kind of how it is for now, or maybe go as like a duo package. Um, but yeah, I think it's probably a. I guess I hope that Florida's well next year. That's
Well,
all
I,
I'm
I
gonna say.
think I think the one thing that Riot has done, which really might help this process, if you are, a game changers player who, wants to do that, right? Wants to really try and, get into the main circuit with the addition of academy teams.
Yes.
That is like a very like the academy teams. Okay, you can't win Ascension, but you can't get relegated either, right? So you are in tier 2. Like no
Yeah.
matter what, like you will be playing against the tier 2 players. No matter what, you will be
Yeah.
on a team. You will, hopefully be getting paid by who whatever that team is. And that is hopefully like and obviously for their team it's kind of like good press, right? Like it's good, the community will support that team, more so, they'll feel that that's a positive move, rather than just signing some rando, if you are shown to be supporting game changers players, uh like so I feel like that is like an easy potential way in of like having still some security but testing yourself at
Hmm.
that kind of limit. But yeah, I think I just hope it goes well for Floor because there's going to be so much pressure, and as you say, like,
Yeah.
let's be real, maybe Apex are going to surprise us all, but realistically, no one thought that they were going to be good, right?
Yeah.
Like before the Floor signing, everyone was like, well, it doesn't matter who these guys sign, like they're probably not going to be that good. Now that they've signed Floor, even if you think Floor's really good, like that's still kind of the case, right? Like this is
Yeah.
still a team that probably you shouldn't expect to be winning a ton of games. But like you say, I really hope that even if that is the case, Floor can at least show um, a level of skill that proves like, oh, okay, this is a worthwhile cause. And I mean, like, look, I, I I would find it difficult to say, like, looking at Floor's numbers, like, you can't really do much better. Like, how much better could you be than this?
Yeah.
Like I said, like a 24% difference of first kill to first death is insane.
Yeah. I
Like,
mean,
that's insane.
it was like I think what 62 to like 19 or something like that in terms
Yeah,
of
like
first duels.
that's
It's truly absurd. And I think one thing that Floor definitely does have going for her is the fact that she plays all four major duelists, right?
yeah,
Like, I mean, we're talking about something that like maybe 10% of the act of the tier one duelists can do, which is play a
yeah,
good Yoru and a good Neon and a good Raze and a good Jet.
yeah.
Um, so that is legitimately a pretty good selling point. Um, And yeah, I mean, I guess my biggest hope is that things go well for Floor this year, in 2025 season. And I really hope that this is not just sort of like the end of the talent pipeline because, the GC scene is kind of at this place where it's really kind of solidified as like there's like 2 or 3 really good teams every year, and there's kind of a fall off from that. And I mean, I guess it's really kind of just like any other regional league, right? It's like the Filipino league or like the Indonesian league. There's like 1 or 2 really good teams, and then the rest of them are kind of okay. Um, so yeah, I guess I just kind of hope that more of the GC players like take the chance. It seems like a lot of teams are doing, big open tryouts every off season. So sign up for those, shoot your shot. Um, and yeah, I guess it'll just be interesting to see what happens with GC next year. And where does this leave like SR, for example? Like what are they gonna do, right?
I have no idea. I have absolutely no idea. But I will say that for GC, like, I think the probably the best thing I think from GC across year to year is I think there has been each year there has so like if the first year had like 3 good teams and the
Hmm.
rest, maybe last year had like 4 or 5, and I think that this year, if you look at like the average of quite a few of the teams, like you could go through and be like, crew are actually pretty decent.
Yeah.
They weren't nearly as good as they were this year last year, right? Like Giants were a decent team, Falcons were actually pretty decent. Like I think you could look at quite a few of the teams and be like, they clearly were pretty decent, and each year you kind of get more and more of these teams that you're like, okay, like these guys can actually can play, so hopefully we keep expanding that, and as I say, kind of keep expanding the tournament as well, because as I said, like Team Liquid Brazil probably should be there as well, because they probably would still be a top 4 team in the world if MIBR are going to the grand final.
Yep. Yep. All right. So that is GC. That is floor announcement. And I guess let's finish off with just a few more sort of things about 2025, upcoming news, anything like that. It's like Loud has officially signed Digizin and Vinny.
Mm-hmm.
So the new Loud is shaping up. It'll definitely be a different Loud than we've seen in the past.
Very different.
Will they be good? I mean, who knows? Maybe.
Who knows? I mean, let's dive into some bigger things, I think, with 2025. Like,
Sure.
my first question for you, Mr. Elevated, is how many international tournaments will global esports make in 2025?
So I mean, my stated goal is that I want to go to Toronto and I want to go to Paris. So I
Okay.
want to go to the second Masters and I want to go to Champions. Champions is the most important tournament of the year. I'm going to be honest, I'm a little bit worried for the health of the Valorant ecosystem because of how valuable Champs is, because I've seen what having a single tournament that actually matters can do to a scene. Um, Riot removed a lot of incentive structure for orgs as far as like content stuff, and they have shifted a lot of the like compensation package to be if you make it to champions. So champions already mattered a huge amount because of the champions skin bundle monetarily. It was like, I don't know, like $1 million influx to each team that made it to champs in the past, and that has now been increased even more because not only is the bundle selling more as the fan base explodes, especially with China being included, but then also there's like an additional share of skin revenue that goes to teams that make it to champs as well. So champs is really the only thing that matters for orgs, and if you make it to champs, essentially your year can be maybe profitable, and if you don't make it to champs, then it's a pretty big failure. Even if you do make it to a Masters. So champs is really the goal. It's the main thing that I'm focused on. I would love to also go to a Toronto land because it's in North America, so I think that would be cool. But yeah, that's my goal as the coach of GE is we're making it to champs, and anything below that is an abject failure.
Okay, I'll keep that in mind. I'll keep those words of abject failure in mind.
I mean, that's
Uh,
legitimately how I feel.
okay. Well, that's pretty interesting. Going in fact, I mean, this is just interesting to see. as you know, a coach of a Pacific team, who I don't know, if you probably have been scrimming, some of them at least somewhat. Um, are you wary of any teams? Who do you think will be your main competition in Pacific?
Um, what am I allowed to say?
You don't have to reveal scrims. I mean, you could just
Yeah.
I mean, you could just say teams. Like,
I
I
mean,
don't think that would be revealing too much.
I think it's pretty obvious that like there will be at least one or two good Korean teams.
Okay.
I think most people are very excited for SPG. I think they've sort of I think there's been rumors that they've been like shitting on people in scrims as well. Um, and Genji should be pretty good next year, I would imagine. Like
Hmm.
obviously they made some changes, but they kept sort of like their trio of maybe the best three that they had from last year. Um, and then yeah, I guess it'll be really interesting to see what happens with like Paper X. You know, with I mean maybe they just put Jing on Phoenix every single map now, right?
Yeah, maybe, maybe.
Maybe Jing just becomes a Phoenix main. But yeah, I think the league is fairly open for the taking for a team that can really step up and kind of like exert their will on the region, because there were a lot of teams that shuffled rosters and there were a lot of fairly significant changes to basically every team in the league. Um, yeah, I mean, I think it's definitely possible that the winner or like the best team in Pacific is somebody that nobody has any idea that it could be them. Like, it might not be like the staple teams that you're used to in Pacific.
Okay. Okay. Well, you heard it. You heard it here first with Mr. Elevated Speak. So it's some hopium copium about his global esports.
I
Are
was
you
talking about
excited?
DFM, by the way.
Yeah.
DFM is like 30-0 against us in scrims.
Well, I don't
I'm
know if
I'm,
that's
I'm
a
trolling.
terrible sign.
I'm
Maybe
trolling.
maybe that's just a terrible
I'm
sign for
trolling.
you. Um, but yeah, I think this will be a very interesting season. I think EMEA keeps popping off with all these like marquee signings that
Yeah,
seem to be quite random and out of nowhere and should shake things up. I think, as you say, Pacific could be quite open to an extent. Um, and I think that Americas as well should be. I mean, interesting. I think that there are some clear, maybe again. I mean, but then again, you've got like MIBO with Aspas. Like, I don't know.
I
I think all
think
the go on.
I think that America's is going to be by far the most competitive league, and it's going to
Yeah,
be very dangerous for every team in that league. Basically, like
yeah,
you could have a team like Sentinels be a top 10 team in the world and not make it to a single event next year.
yeah. I think it's shaping up to be certainly an interesting season. And I am very much looking forward to it. Now, you have a game that you will be playing in what is it, about 10 hours, something like
Yep,
that, 11 hours, against Rare Atom, it says here on VLR. How are you
yep.
feeling about the global esports face off?
I mean, it's just good for us because it took a while to get the players together with visa stuff, and so we were unable to get to any actual international LAN tournaments in the off season, and so we're basically just trying to use these matches as like slightly more serious scrim practice. Getting used to playing together, getting used to playing with in ears, getting used to playing with flashing lights, getting used to playing a BO3 with you know interviews and downtime in between maps, and how we sort of it's basically just like a trial run of like here's all of the problems that we're going to have to deal with during the season, and let's come up with solutions to dealing with them before the season actually starts, so that when we actually get into the BCT, we've already dealt with oh, like these in-ears are uncomfortable, I can't hear very well. I get nervous before the game, so what are sort of mitigation strategies we can come up with? How do we make sure that we start maps like with good momentum, that type of thing? And so these are all things that we're going to have to figure out, and we're kind of using these matches as a trialing ground for that. Obviously we want to win all of them, Currently, we are 1-1. We've got 4 more to go, and yeah, I'm hoping to come out with a winning record.
Okay, wonderful. And how are you looking forward to living in Korea?
I'm definitely excited. I almost moved to Korea after college to teach English as a
Interesting.
second language, but ended up going and teaching snowboarding instead. So it's sort of like a full circle.
Classic
Okay,
upper middle class elevated.
I'm definitely not upper middle class, so had to grind my way to where I am. Um, but yes, I am very excited to go. It's going to be a very weird experience because I have a very comfortable life, and I'm going to be leaving my family behind, and I'm going to be living on a completely different time zone. But I'm definitely excited for the experience. It'll be cool. Global has been great as an org, sort of like making things easy and taking care of players and that type of stuff. So excited to get over there. I'm excited to work. I'm definitely gonna miss my family and comfort of my regular life. But I asked for
And
this,
me, and mainly me.
mostly TMV, uh, and my dogs.
Yeah. Is that how you
Um,
see me? Am I lumped in with the dogs? Is that
no, you're like a level below that. You're like a cat. And then we've got the dogs, we've got the TMV, and then you know
I
everything
see.
else.
Yeah,
Um,
and the Roomba.
yeah, the Roomba, exactly. But yeah, it should be cool. Are you going to be watching our games?
Oh, of course. We're gonna that first GE game, whenever it is, circle it, highlight it, can't miss. I'm sure all of my Twitch chat and YouTube chat are basically gonna be GE fans. It's gonna be very weird to see you, when they take a timeout and I'm watching you, talk with Juvenile, like, on the little camera, being like, oh, we should do this, all that kind of stuff. See you yapping away. Um, that's going to be very fun. It'll be fun to see, when I think a comp is an elevated comp, and I'm like, well, this is definitely on him. So if they play shit, he's getting fired.
Yeah, yeah. I'm
And
excited for that as well.
yeah, and yeah, seeing you represent a billion plus people should be, no pressure.
No pressure. Yeah, it'll be an experience, and that's what life's about, right? Just
It is.
having experiences. So
Yes.
that'll be cool. Any final thoughts on any roster moves or heading into 2025? I mean, there's still some more off-season events. There's some regional stuff, but then we've got like a little bit of a Christmas break, and then the season starts in January. So it's actually not that far away.
Do you know when the season starts?
I don't know the exact date. I probably have been shown it, but for maybe for the better, I don't know what it actually is, so I can't leak anything.
Yeah.
But I
Well, I
assume it's in
was hoping
January,
you wouldn't
right?
leak on the show, but just kind of, tell me so that I can plan my life. I'm trying to get my friend wants me to go on a stag do, but I don't know when any of the events are, so I can't come. Like this is the right. Give me the fuck. Why do you have to wait so long to fucking tell us when the events are? Like
It's a it's
who like tell people what, like, people want to go to these international tournaments. Maybe fucking reveal when they are so people can plan their fucking lives around them. I don't know, just a thought.
it's just it's a purity test from Riot. They want to see who is fully devoted to the game. You must
Yeah, they're
clear
just
your
like in
entire
a
schedule
week
for Valorant.
time. Yeah, just tell
You're
me
not
when it
allowed to
is,
have
man.
anything going on but Valorant TMV.
Yeah, I know.
Tell your
Like
friend
if you're the
no.
first masters in the year, you get like literally like what 2 months to plan this. Like, oh shit,
Yeah.
give me more time. Maybe I got stuff to do. Anyway, yeah, that was my only thought of what might be the end of an era. Some might say, others might say an end of an era. Um, but we'll have to see. Again, the future is cloudy. None of us know what the future holds. Maybe Elevated will, suggest a comp so wild that Juvenile just decides this guy's so crazy he can't be my assistant coach.
And then I will be scrounging the streets again
Yeah,
of
scrounging
content.
back. Yeah.
Be like, TMV, please give me a shout out on your stream. I need to kickstart my content creator journey again.
Will you miss that? Will you miss your Your
Uh,
channels?
I mean, I still have my channels, but I mean, I haven't made content in a while just because I've been busy.
Mm.
I don't like editing.
I,
It's
you
the
know
big
what?
thing.
I am with you there. You know what?
I don't
Wow.
like editing, which is the main reason I don't make very much content. Um,
Yes, I am totally with you. I also, by the way, quick note today, I mean, my first silver play button got delivered, but not to my address, and it got stolen, essentially. So I had to
no.
order a second silver play button. And after much, you have no idea how hard it is to get a second silver play button, by the way. What a fucking farce that is. Like, you have to go through this website, you have to email someone first, and then they take a week to get back to you, and then they have to give you a code, and then you have to go to this website, but then the website wouldn't let me order it the first time, and it came back like it was canceled, and then I had to go and talk to someone else and then do it again. And it was an absolute fucking nightmare. But I don't even know how long it's been, but I've finally today sent it to my girlfriend's address instead, because fuck knows they would probably deliver it to the wrong place again. It has been delivered. I have a silver play button. Hallelujah. My achievements are not for naught. Celebrations are in offer, and it also only cost me like $150.
Congratulations.
Something that I should have
Do you
had for
have
free.
it? Can we play button
No, I
cheers
don't
for the
have it with
camera?
me. It's in my girlfriend's house, and I have not picked it up. And also, it's snowing outside, so driving probably not. Does it snow in Oregon? I don't think it
Oh,
does in Korea, so you'll be fine there.
it snows in both places.
It snows in Korea. Does it snow in
Yeah, yeah.
Korea?
Yeah, apparently.
Interesting.
I was asking Chobra about it. I was like, "Do you have any tips for an American moving to Korea?" Um, but actually, funny weather thought to end this segment. Apparently, we're getting what's called a bomb cyclone in Oregon tonight. Apparently, we're gonna have sustained 50 plus mile an hour winds because there's some sort of like mini cyclone typhoon thing happening. And
Nice.
yeah, maybe a tree will fall on my house, and that'll be the end of me.
Cool. That sounds like a great way to end the show.
All right.
The threat of death.
We'll see you again at some point. Not sure when the next show will be, but appreciate everybody for watching as always. See you later.